Scanning. Accepted.
Hello and welcome. I usually make 3D models on the weekend, but I'm having issues with my current RAM situation. So I'm just gonna play some indie games on the weekend till I get my RAM situated. Um, I had kind of a poll up yesterday on what game to play, and they decided for me to play Narcissu. I've only played the first one. Um, when I played it, it was very, very sad. So it is very enjoyable though. So um, let's go ahead and uh, start it. Ever since I was a child, it wasn't on the I wasn't on the healthiest side, but even so, I went to grade school normally. During summer vacation, I played until I was tanned, very dark. In June, soon after entering middle school, the day the day after we ordered swimsuits for swimming class that would start next month. That time was the first time I experienced being admitted into a hospital. Just a little before the first semester of midterms, a day where the rain that started to fall felt awfully cold. Felt awfully cold. In the midst of all of the pure white sky of the rainy season. Oh. In the beginning, everyone in class came to visit me each day. Change my mic, turn my mic down a little bit. When I was discharged from the hospital during the weekends, they would come to my house and play. But that was just the beginning. Fall came, winter left, hospitalization, discharge, outpatient care, then started back again with hospitalization. Classmates who once were called friends at some point became acquaintances, and then turned to strangers. With each turn of the season, it seems I was disappearing from the memories. I look. It looks like it might. It makes them uncomfortable. For those who live normally, by very existence, that's why I seem to have been erased. Numerous seasons, white overcast skies, passed without even needing to exchange words with anyone. My English textbook from my first year midterms onward remained brand new. it was there that my time seemed to have stopped. Years later, 2004, early summer, protagonist. Summer, flowering, flowing sweat. In the driver's license exam area, there was a large electronic bulletin board installed. All at once, the lights came on, like everyone else there. I searched for my own number. 237, 237. Scanning among the most lit light panel, I found my own examination number. A thunk. Because it was just past midday, the train car was quite empty. And then, and in that empty car, I was on the way home from the examination center. In my left hand was a traffic regulation manual I had just received. In my shirt pocket was a brand new license. With this, I'm also normally licensed, eh? I murmured somewhat seriously, but didn't feel quite particular strong emotion. It's not like I wanted to drive cars, nor did I really have another purpose in mind. It was just people around me were going to the training center and they recommended that I at least get a driver's license. That night, when I reported to my parents that I've gotten a license, "Oh sure," was a short reply. As an experiment, I tried asking to borrow the car, and just as shortly came as, "You can't." It wasn't like I had wanted to drive the car, but the response were exactly as I imagined. They were those sort of parents. The next day, upon waking up, my chest hurt, so I was taken to the hospital. Normally, I had little to do with sickness. That was why waiting in the initial waiting room felt extremely boring. Finally, just when I thought the examinations were over, this time I went to take x-rays and blood tests. Was made to go. On top of that, for a long time, I was made to wait in boredom without noticing. I finished reading 3 books of jump manga in the waiting room and was reaching for the 4th. And just like that, I was made to do some paperwork or be admitted into the hospital. The brand new driver's license that still lay in my shirt pocket. It looked like the time where the view was far off. Protagonist 2004 autumn. Around when those very noisy cicadas had stopped crying, as usual, I was in the hospital. Of course, it wasn't like I always was admitted to the hospital. It would be in and out. Last month, I had an experience with surgery after being discharged. I commuted 5 minutes for outpatient care by scooter. and even from then on, admitting discharge outpatient care gradually moved to being admitted again. I didn't know anything about PET or IRESSA, but I noticed throughout the coming and going that a number of months have passed. Grab a drink real quick. In exchange for my decreasing appetite, the most types amount of drugs increased, even if I could see with my own eyes that my strength was declining. My legs felt a bit thin, but that's not your imagination. The needle on the scale would tell me, and yet I was looking at myself somehow objectively, as if watching a stranger, like looking to a scene on television. The sudden things that happened to my body, my head couldn't keep up with them. The feeling that what was happening was real didn't arise. And so, even through it, it was supposed to be my body. I could only watch myself from afar with cold eyes. A winter day, around when Christmas trees were disappearing from the streets. Perhaps it was the end of the year, but I was allowed to return home. In the end, it seems to be only temporary, but even then, I was a bit happy. In a mix of rain and sleet, I returned home for the first time in a while. For some reason, everyone in my family was gathered, even though my parents normally didn't speak much. While being a bit stiff, they smiled at me. The little sister who I always argued with made my favorite cream stew and fried shrimp. We sat next to each other in the kotosu, where they peeled mandarins for me. They were excessively kind. That made an impression. During this time, I had just a bit of realization. Still left in my pocket that brand new license. That license, without giving a rise to any particular value, might expire. While having stiff, unnatural smiles structured at me, calmly, vaguely, rather simple, I thought of that as if thinking of someone else. January 2005. The new year passed, and I returned again to the hospital. On that day, for some reason, I didn't go through the 4th floor, but instead to a conference room. I was made to go. There with my father and a doctor, I heard many things. I was made to listen. It was that thing called notification, I guess. They had an extremely indirect way of speaking, but in the end, it seems like I was going to die. I see. And so, I was only able to reply with that. I couldn't find other words from when I entered until I left the room. That all that was all that I said. Hearing my answer, the doctor quickly wrote with the ballpoint pen in his hand. Most likely, it was the paperwork for the hospice. To the very end, he was very businesslike, and my father was very much the same. It was such a simple thing. That was my honest impression. And then between the day and the next, I changed from 4th to the 7th, and from 6-patient room to a single. And also, the 7th floor itself was a bit different from the other floors. For one thing, the floors were sparkled, and the ceilings were much higher, much more expansive. Inside the rooms, it was extremely clean. The large window seems designed to let a lot of sunlight. However, the windows only opened a tiny bit. Whenever tried measuring, it was slightly smaller than would allow your head to pass through. Also, the color of ID bracelets changed. Since the day I was admitted, the vinyl bracelet was always wrapped around my wrist. Upon it was my name and blood type. That color had changed from blue to white. High ceilings, white vinyl bracelets, windows that could only open 15 centimeters. The day I was transferred to the 7th floor, it was when the boring New Year program boring New Year program were still being broadcast. The time I met her for the first time was also at the very beginning of the year. Across the hall, facing the nurses' station, was a lounge-like place. Left in that unpopulated place were a number of sofas, folding chairs, and large television. On that 20-inch CRT, a meaningless New Year's program was running. Watching that boring television with a equally bored expression was some girl. She had a small build and wore pink pajamas. Her wrist had, just like I did, a white bracelet. Hair that went to her hips left an impression. Hey, you. Is that interesting? There wasn't any particular deep meaning to it since there was no one around. I tried speaking to her profile. Not particularly. That was all she replied with. She didn't even turn toward me, even though I had spoken to her. Perhaps she has absolutely no interested in me. She continued to gaze at the television with a bored look. If it's boring, you don't have to watch it. As I thought that, I also sat down in a folding chair. And sitting next to her, I gazed at the television. There's nothing else to do. Nothing else I could do. In silence, we continued to gaze at the television. On the screen were the usual New Year's program, pathetic impersonation and parlor tricks. Occasionally bringing out the host's stupid high-pitched laughing in the pure white sunlit room. It dryingly reverberated. Say, you. Suddenly the girl spoke to me while still gazing at the television. You're on which time? Which time? What does that mean? Coming here. The 7th floor. Sorry, I don't understand the meaning of that question. I see. It's your first. It seems that my inability to understand what she was saying, she had alliterated, literally came to the conclusion. Well, there's no one else around, so it's my duty. Duty? There's a rule for it. While nodding, she added that there were rules for someone to teach people who first come here to the 7th floor. Right now, I knew nothing about what any of this was. And if ignoring me, the girl slowly began speaking. Well, listen closely, all right? They were slightly different compared to the doctor's speech that I had hearing coming up here. They were slightly different compared to the... Oh, I just said that. In that business-like speech from the doctor, it was said that this was a place to wait the advancements of medicine. It was also called a place for healing the heart. Most likely, broadly speaking, that was probably correct. However, from what the girl said, that was a facade. The 7th floor was within the hospital, but was the only place that didn't give treatment. Simply a place to wait for the end of life. That's what the girl said. That's what I also felt. I had the same perception. Yeah, that's the word. I'm on the second time, you see. Second time. What's that? And the girl taught me this place is called the 7th floor, to be here from the moment of admission all the way until you die. First of all, apparently didn't happen. Even if being cursed was impossible, your health becomes better, then they will allow you to come and go home once. But after a while, your condition worsens, and once again, you come back. Amongst those coming and goings, eventually you die. The place where life ran out, it was only varied between home and the 7th floor. And unfailingly, one would die in either one of those. Either of those. It seemed no one has ever escaped that. It was with that meaning that the girl had to say it was her second time. Well, only say this once before. So from here on, listen well. Still looking at the dull screen, the girl continued speaking even more. The subject wasn't about what time the light would be out, the normal sort of topics that change between admitted patients. She taught me about totally different things. On the third time, you're given temporary discharge. Prepare yourself, there's never a fourth. You won't be going home anymore. If there's any time that you want to run away, to go not to Station A, but towards Station B, you'll eat anything. That's the shortest path, and it will end to the least burden to your family. It was all full of these sort of topics that would make one pause. Most likely, it was only the people who came to this place, only among those who moved toward death. These were the things that they continue passing down. Was the duty you mentioned this? Yes, that's right. Someday you'll tell it to the newcomers too, okay? With those final words, the girl slowly stood up. Gently, her long hair swayed and brushed the tip of my nose. Well, it's time for me. Well, it's time for taking temperature, so. And then, just like that, and with her back facing me, she began to walk toward the hall. I was left alone in a place with the laughing voices from the screen and the white flowers decorating the window. In the end, the girl never once looked in my direction. From then, after a few days has passed, finally the New Year's programs ended. Soon the middle and high school third term would be starting. The day in the lounge, once again, the figures of the girl and I were staring at the television. Excuse me. It's boring, isn't it? Indeed. The word came back and replied, but both of us were conversing while continuing to gaze at the screen. Hey, is this place always like this? I don't understand the meaning of your question. I mean, how there's no one around? Nurses, doctors, the helpers, if you take them out, then aside from our attendants, I've never seen anyone else. I guess it's because it's New Year's. You want to know the reason for that? No. It's not like I meant that. Then I won't say. An exchange that wasn't even a conversation. We indifferently passed back and forth. A slight breeze from the window that couldn't move more than 15 centimeters occasionally would sway the girl's hair, and in the same way would sway the white flowers decorating around the windows. The two of us, while watching the board television, were also spending days passing time. Pitter patter. The two of you were in a place like this? Saying that while rushing up was an elderly nurse. From just glancing at the nurse station once in a while, this person seemed to be the chief of the 7th floor. So, Sasumi-san, Do you have a fever? It's fine. I don't have one. That's to me. Apparently, this was the girl's name. You can't go roaming about outside anymore, okay? Alright, everyone gets worried. Whatever, sure. What kind of statement is that? Really, girls these days, there's no just helping them. And for a while more, the nurse continued nattering on. To that, she and the girl said to me, let it go by the indifferent expression. As if ignoring the slightest noisy nurse, she continued watching the board screen in front of her. Okay, done. Later, I'll come test your blood, okay? With those final words, once again, the nurse returned back to the nurse station. Hey, you. Can I call you Setsumi, right? Wrapped around the girl's wrists were the white vinyl bracelets. While looking at the blood type and named her, I asked, is something wrong, Setsumi? Why is there no honorific? What? Even though you're the youngest one. Hey, why am I the youngest one? No real reason. I just thought so. It wasn't that I was upset at the word younger. It was just, no matter how you looked at it, no one would believe I was 5, 6 years old. That was why I took out the license. That was in my chest pocket and showed it to her. How about it? Even though I look like this, I'm 20, you know? Like, I thought younger. With just a glance at the license, the girl gave only that reply. Hey, I don't really get it. It doesn't matter, does it? It's only just a bit older. As always, she spoke softly with no expression. Those eyes, while always looking at the dull television, also felt like they were looking at some place far away. Around when the morning temperature taking ended, I got into an elevator, trying not to be seen by the nurses. Coming to the first floor, deliberately passing through the entrance for outpatients, I just kept walking out the hospital. The destination the destination was that place I was taught before, not the nearby Station A, but the far Station B. It wasn't like I was planning to run away. The 7th floor, our home. There was no one who died outside one of those two. That was what I heard before. It also seemed that the girl called Sesame had gone many times to Station B. That was why, for no reason, I suddenly felt like wanting to go and see that place once. It's not like there are guards around. Even so, us residents on the 7th floor were different from other admitted patients. While also thinking about, just maybe, I continue walking to the street to the early mornings station area, glancing at the hurrying commuters and people going to school. I slowly moved at a measured pace. After walking a bit, taking about 25 minutes, I finally arrived before the station. In terms of bus stops, it was about 4 distance. There's a fair bit of people around. That was my first impression upon seeing Station B. Because my clothes were pajamas, I stood out somewhat. However, if just like that, I bought a train ticket without a single problem, I felt I could go anywhere. Why it was not Station A but Station B that was recommended, I didn't know. However, if one were planning to run away, I thought it would be a simple thing. The girl was also supposed to have come many times, but why was it that she still remained in the 7th floor? Even now, I wonder. Early morning before the station, while watching the peoples hurrying by, suddenly that thought occurred to me. That the night after the lights have been turned off, holding onto a book of manga, unable to sleep, I wander around the ward alone. Normally, wandering around after lights out would get one scolded badly, but us residents of the 7th floor were given a relative amount of freedom. And with the lights off, the usual lounge was pitch dark. There, I saw her figure. Hey, today you're looking outside. In the dark room, there was a response, but her face remained looking beyond the window. Immediately, I started talking about what happened during the day. That reminds me, this morning, I went all the way to the station. Just like you told me, I went to see Station B. I see. But the girl's response was no different from the usual. Because she was supposed to have been gone before, I had thought that there might have been some sort of kind of reaction, but thinking about it, as well as how the girl still remained here, did it mean that she really had no intent of running away? I will soon be able to go home. Eh? Suddenly, the girl opened her mouth. Words as if she had slowly been clothed through my heart just now. But next is the 3rd time, after all, that we might not be able to meet anymore. That's right. Most likely, when she said that she would be able to go home, she was talking about her temporary discharge in this place called the 7th floor, to be admitted more than 3 times. It apparently never happened. Especially, unlike the elderly, when considering the rate of progression of disease, it was even more so. Sorry, Andy. Reread the sentence. Especially unlike the elderly, when considering the rate of progression of disease, should be of the disease, it was even more so for younger patients like us. With that kind of meaning came the word words, "We won't meet again." Say, which would you choose? Choose what? Which one? Which one of? Which one you plan on dying at? Suddenly, hearing the word death, my words just caught just for a moment. Don't know. I still haven't thought about that. I see. Well, you're still on your first time. The girl spoke in a lonely murmur. Of course, even I knew I couldn't be here forever. Like everyone else, going in and out of the hospital slowly weakening until someday, in the end, either the 7th floor or surrounded by thin smiles, it would probably come down to a choice between those two. I don't want home, but I don't want here either. Then what will you do? Nothing in particular. I won't do anything. Well, I'm still able to walk on my own. I'll just go somewhere. Somewhere, you? Even though it was obvious that if one wanted to run, one could, this girl still remained on the 7th floor. When I thought about that, do you have other places to go? You want to pull me back? Or perhaps you want to come with me? No, I didn't mean it like that. Then don't ask. While gazing out the window, the girl spoke indifferently. As always, it had been a conversation where she did not even look in my direction. However, just that time, her usual emotionless profile seemed sad. I thought that the 3rd temporary discharge would be the last. I've come to the 7th floor for the first time, and then a girl who would soon face her 2nd time. For me, I still couldn't really feel the things that were happening as reality, but someday would also come to make me. Someday would I also come to make such a face. From before dawn, rain fell. Occasionally, also changed to either sleet or snow, and lightly continued coming down. Within that, I was in the usual place watching television. As always, this 7th floor was devoid of people. Is it interesting? Nope. Boring. The girl came from the other side. Exchanging only those words, she quietly sat in the folding chair next to me. And then today, also the two of us began gazing at the TV. Surely the girl was also the same. There was nothing else to do. Nothing else she could do. Surprisingly, she responded to something on the television. Something the matter? Not particularly. The words were the same, not particularly, but it was the response that was different from usual for herself. Becoming interested I turned my eyes to the screen. What was on the screen was some kind of nature scene on a beautiful hill, tree, flowers merged into a landscape and focused on the screen. There were great many white flowers. They were flowers I remember seeing before. They resembled the white flowers, even now decorating the room by the window. Are those the same flower? Look, aren't they exactly like this? With these? While speaking, I pointed first at the screen, then toward the window. No? Oh, really? They're the same kind, but strictly speaking, they're different. Giving the flowers by the window just a glance, she once again returned to gazing at the TV while answering. Honestly, even if she denied that they were the same, to me, I didn't know the difference between the two. Besides, for me, whether the flowers were the same or different, it didn't really matter. Instead of that, the girl normally would never participate in conversations. That girl seemingly continued speaking. That was why I also tried to maintain the conversation. Are you maybe knowledgeable about this sort of thing? Not particularly. Really, but I can't tell the difference at all. The white flowers blooming beyond the screen, the flowers in the vase beyond the girl's profile. While vaguely looking at both of them, I continue further with my words. So, these are orchids or lilies? Look, they've got a whitish color, right? Even though I had no interest, I just kept saying things that came to mind. Excuse me. However, the girl soon became like the usual and fell silent. With her usual expression, she only gazed at the boring screen, and when I had to give up on the possibility that she would take up the conversation and once again begin to move my eyes back to the television. Narcissu. They're Narcissus. I honestly don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. While answering, for the first time, she faced me, swaying her long waist-length hair. She pointed toward the flowers showing on the TV. She looked at me, just like the flowers displayed on the screen. There was a white vinyl bracelet wrapped around the wrist with white skin. The first time I saw that face, I thought I saw a briefest of smiles. Ooh. I'm gonna take a short break. I'll be right back.